Hey everyone, hi, welcome another episode of the Chia Show. And today I have a very, very special guest, Michael Paulo, all the way from the US. He is one of my favorite saxophonists, and we have so much to share and talk about. And thank you for joining us both on YouTube and Facebook. Just going to start off by saying hi to some of you who have been here. Russell Wong, you're the first to reply and share on Facebook as well, and hope to see you here soon. And Farhan, nice to see you. Vini as well. Those of you who are watching on Facebook, you can join us on the YouTube link above. You can adjust the sound and the audio quality there as well. So do join us in the chat there. And hi, Justin. Nice to see you. We'll see you in the shop a bit later. And yeah, we have such, I've been so fortunate to be able to interview and learn from all my favorite saxophonists and Michael really as a person, as a player, and even as a businessman, as a promoter for festival concerts. There's so much to learn from him, and I'm glad that he could make the time to be a special guest today. And you know what? Before I start off, I'm going to try something different. I'm going to actually start off by playing a clip, a YouTube clip of Michael performing at a Java Jazz Festival. And Michael was also the music director for the Java Jazz Festival for many, many years. And, I have two videos loaded up here, and I really, really love the music, and it's with a full orchestra as well. And I'm going to start off with this tune, and it's called My Heart and Soul. And I'm going to play a bit of this clip, and then I'll bring on Michael after this. So nice to see you guys. Adrian, good morning. And Tapia from Mexico, thank you so much for joining me here all the way from Mexico. Oh, and Jeff Kashiwa is here. Hi, Jeff. Nice to see you. And Jeff will be coming on the show next week. So I'm really looking forward to that as well. And Jeff said Michael Paulo was one of his first influences, truly. Kalapana, Black Sand. Wow, Jeff, thank you so much for being here. And I'm sure Michael will be thrilled to see these comments as well. And we have Casey here. Good morning, Casey. Nice to see you. And Guan, nice to see you. Good morning. Adrian says hi to Jeff as well. And Xavier, nice to see you all the way from the US. Thank you for always being here at the shows. And yeah, like I mentioned, okay, so sorry, I accidentally exited. So it was left with Michael in there. So you get a sneak peek of Michael. Yeah, I'm actually using my wife's laptop today because I forgot to bring home my laptop charger. So still getting used to it. And yes, so sorry about that. And I'm gonna start off once again, like I said, by sharing a clip. And let me share this right now. Let me get to it. And hope you guys will enjoy this video of Michael performing at the Java Jazz Festival. And this is a tune called My Heart and Soul. So that was Michael Paulo playing a tune called My Heart and Soul at the Java Jazz Festival. Really, really beautiful. So, for those of you who are new to Michael's music, he has so much music out, and please go and check out his music after this. So, without further ado, I'm going to bring on Mr. Michael Paulo.
Aloha!
Go. How are you? How's everything in the US right now?
Well, I'm alive, and that's the best I can do right now because everything else is who knows.
Yeah. And how's the past few months been? More time at home?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's the blessing that I've managed to spend a lot of time with my family, my kids, my grandson, and spend quality time.
Mm,
So that's been the nice thing about having to stay home and not getting out and doing shows and everything. But I gotta admit that after 3 or 4 months, it's getting to be a little testy not to be able to go out and play and perform and do concerts and we have it's just now it's just about managing your sanity, right? So
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and I know Michael, you always have such a busy schedule. I mean, in terms of as a performer and with all the festivals and concerts that you organize, I think this must be a huge change. But
Well, I
yeah,
mean, again, it's I guess it's in some ways a forced retirement. I would think about, well, how would it be to retire, right? And I guess this was it's like I get up every day and it's like, what do I do today? I have no shows to promote, I have no concerts to perform. I mean, I have a studio. I try to um, write some songs and write some music,
mm,
but times like this, to be honest, it's really hard to find the inspiration, because I mean, our country is going through a lot of things, and it's very unfortunate, and so I'm very passionate about people, and what's happening to people. So when
yeah.
I see the tragedies that are happening to a lot of Americans, and what's going on in our country, it's I get very upset and just disturbed. So to try to write and compose music, it's a challenge. I gotta admit, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. But
yeah.
we were talking earlier, and I really admire the fact that you are very open about how you feel, on topics, and you use your social media for that. I know for one, I'm a bit on the shy side when it comes to that, which I want to work on it as well, because I feel like I have my opinions. And one thing I read recently and have always known is that we need to make strong opinions, just be firm about what we stand. And if more people did that, I think there will be a lot more difficult conversations, and that can be good, if everyone shies away from saying what they think, of course, in a very caring and appropriate manner. But how has this been you all along, just not being afraid to share what you feel on the
No,
social media?
in fact, believe it or not, since we're talking about my history, when I was growing up as a teenager, and I was pretty introverted. I was pretty shy. I mean, little story, when I first started playing music, I was always the one, that only child. When I was growing up with all my siblings, I had four sisters and a brother, and they all sang, they all played music, they took piano lessons. My brother's a drummer and everything, so they were all musical growing up. But I never went there. I was kind of like a bookworm, until I was about 12, 13 years old. And then you know I got into high school, and then I picked the saxophone, by chance, in band, just to take it up, and I liked it, and I started playing it. And I learned, one of the first songs I learned was like Take Five and Misty, right? Those two standards.
Mm,
And
mm,
and I remember a time when my dad, who's a performer, everybody knows, professional musician, he would be performing at the clubs. And the first time he said, he tried to make me play, right, and stuff. And they literally had to like grab me and drag me on stage, and I was deathly afraid, back then. So I went from that to like, now, you see me on stage and what I do. And then even to where I joined Kalapana and I came to LA, I was still pretty soft spoken and reserved as a person. Um, and then when I came back to LA to try to make it on my own, that's when I had to discover that I had to get rid of that and become a
Mm.
little more aggressive, right? Because if you didn't, when you came to the big city, if you didn't try to dig in and put your feet down, you would just get blown away and passed over. I
Yeah.
remember going to jam sessions and I'd be in the corner waiting to play and, not being aggressive. The whole night would go by and I'd still in the corner and didn't play, right? So I learned. And finally, after a couple of times going, and I said, man, there's an opening. I'd start jumping in and playing. And I would never do that, right? But that's the only way you're going to get hurt. So I would liken that, moving to Los Angeles, the big city, really
Mm.
made me come out of, my shell and then doing shows, concerts, and then also becoming a businessman promoter, then you have to speak out. You have to make things happen, right? So by nature, the reason why I'm not afraid to speak out because, as a person, I care. I really care about people. So with music and what I do and the concerts that I do, it's always about the audience. It's always about my band members. It's always about the people who are trying to make it happen. So I care about them. And when I see, things going wrong and people being treated wrong, I care. So I have to say something and I have to make my feelings known because from that aspect, if I can effect any kind of change, with people and their attitudes and in the circle that I have, then it's my responsibility to try to do that, I think. You
Mm.
know,
That's amazing, and so much to learn from, with that. And maybe we can start right from the beginning. Growing up in Hawaii, was playing with is Kalapana, is
yeah.
that
Kalapana, yeah.
pronouncing it correct?
Uh-huh.
Kalapana, was that what brought you to LA the first time, or
Um,
you guys?
yeah, well, yes, because when they asked me to join them, I was just out of high school. I was going to the
Oh.
University of Hawaii and playing gigs around Waikiki, and then I got the
Mm.
opportunity. They heard about me, and they needed a permanent sax player, so they called me, and the rest is history. So yeah, I was about 19 back then, and
Mm.
I had to actually move and go live with them in California, right? And
Wow.
and on the flip side, it was a big disappointment to my parents because they wanted me to go to college,
Mm.
study, get the degree. I actually had a scholarship to another university in Texas, and I turned it down to go on the road with a rock band from Hawaii, right? So they were disappointed, and I said, look, I mean, basically my philosophy was these guys were already doing what I want to do. They were making records, they were touring, they were playing live
Yeah.
concerts, and I said, well, I got a chance to just go straight to the top of the line, right? Instead of
Yeah.
going to school and then graduating and trying to find a job. So that was
Yeah.
my philosophy, and I joined the group. I quit school, and unfortunately, it was a great experience. I spent 3 4 years with them. I made records. I was in the studio, wrote
Mm.
songs, traveled around, played concerts. But then, after a while, I had to just find out what I can do on my own. So I left the band at that point, right? I
Mm.
think in 1979, 80. Um, but, Kalapana, that was my outcoming. In fact, I was talking about a story with my guitarist earlier today, and we were talking about, and this applies to musicians out there if you're listening, about learning a craft, learning the instrument. It's pretty much systematic, right? So anybody can learn to play the sax, the trumpet, the piano. There's fingerings, there's techniques you can do, and you can learn, scales and everything, right? And
Right.
and if you put the time in, you can get proficient at it, any instrument, right? Guitar and stuff. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, music is about expressing yourself, about communicating to an audience, right?
Mm.
Anyway, that's my strong opinion: is that if you play music, That's what it's a form of expression. When you write a song, you play an instrument, you sing, everything is about reaching people, right? So going back to what I was talking about, that is that there was a point where I knew when I was that age, 18, 19 years old, I was playing professionally, and it was something I wanted to do. But I knew that you had to have a certain gift or talent, right, to make it as a performer, not just to be a good musician. There's a lot of good musicians that work here and there, but to really take it to another level, that I felt you needed that connection with the audience. And I don't know if I ever told this story, but with Kalapana, my coming out per se was when they hired me, and I had never met them. I was just playing clubs in Waikiki, right, doing these little gigs, and all of a sudden this band who they were the number one band. They sold 60,000 records right away, and then their first concert, right, returning back to Hawaii, was at the Waikiki Shell, and it was a record crowd, biggest crowd ever till today, 11,000 plus people. And I had never played in front of an audience like that in my life, right? I played club gigs in Waikiki, and like I said, so I had to find out, and the experience of playing that music and then being in front of the audience like that, and the reception, and when you play the response, then I knew. I said, okay, I can do this. At that moment, I said I can do this, and I decided this is what I'm going to do the rest of my life.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that was your first ever show with them.
Yeah, it was my first ever show in front of 11,000 people.
Wow.
So, yeah, it was crazy. It was crazy. I mean, going from this absolutely nobody, and then there you are. They put you in front of 11,000 people screaming on a big stage, and so that was my launch. So
Wow.
yeah.
But I guess, even after you left the band and came out as a solo artist, I guess playing in a band as a band member, I guess really helped you throughout your career as well. You've played and supported, many of the best singers in the business. So, but maybe before we go to that, could I ask you, how did it feel when you had to make the decision to leave the band? I'm sure it was comfortable, everything was, stable work. Was that something you struggled with for a long time, or it was just a clean cut? And
Okay. So again, another teachable moment is that, we've all heard the stories about, the bands, if you're being in the band, all of a sudden, the management and they're like, taking the money, and you're not getting paid and all that kind of stuff. I mean, flat out, that's who we were. We were young kids. We were making music. We were recording. We were touring, and basically penniless, right?
wow.
We were getting paid, and so I mean, we had a house to live in, and we got fed and everything. But we were making these writing songs and recording and everything, and the management, they were taking the record advances and publishing royalties, and they were buying real estate and everything with it, right? So we never saw a dime. So for the first 2 or 3 years, it was exciting, right? I'm here, I'm doing my thing, and then maybe it's a precursor to my business mind today, but I started going, wait a minute, man, we're doing all this, and we're not getting paid, we're not seeing any money, and so the alarm bells were starting to go off. So I actually had a meeting, and I remember we were in Japan, and we had to sign a new record contract with a Japanese record label, and we were in Japan, and all of a sudden we got these record contracts, right? And I read the contract, and it was predated before we went to the tour, right? So in other words, they had cut the deal months before, and they wanted us to sign this contract. And I told the band, I said, they can't do that. It's illegal, right? So I started, stirring up the dirt and the dust, and we had a meeting. And I said, look, we need to confront them. And I was still young. I was only like 21 or 22 years old. I said, look, we need to like, you know, just bring it out, you know, because
Yeah.
we're getting ripped off. And so they all agreed, and we had a big meeting, and they were, you know, we had agreed, well, if they don't come to our terms, then we wouldn't quit, right? All of us going to quit. So
Yeah.
long story short, we had the meeting, everybody went around, and I was the only one that left. Everybody stayed, right? So,
Wow.
but then the irony about it was, you know, they hired me back and paid me. So the next tour, I was the only one getting paid. So it was funny. And then after that, then it was the same thing. Nothing changed. And then they actually asked me to join, become part of the band again. The management said, "Hey, we want you back in." I said, "No, I'm out of here." So I left. It was about 1980, and then you know, I went back to Hawaii for a couple of years, and then I moved to LA after that.
Wow, that was crazy. And being at that age and really having that business sense that something is not right. I think for a lot of people at the age, they'll just keep going,
Oh
just
yeah, I
play.
mean, and like, all the rest of the band kept going, and the result was the same. You know, after a few years, they all left, and then nobody made any money, right? So you know,
Wow.
you know, that I love those guys, and I mean, you know, one of the few members already passed away, but you know, I owe a lot to them. The experiences I had,
Mm.
the opportunity to write songs and record in the studio. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of work that I did. I mean, Jeff Koshua mentioned Black Sand and things that I didn't realize the impact of what I was doing, you know, at the time. But then, you know, as the years go by, you run into certain sax players and you go, "Wow, man, you know, that I use that to audition and get a deal or and stuff like that," which is very flattering, and you know, it makes you feel, you know, uh, you did something, accomplished something anyway. So as
Yeah.
far as trying to influence other people, but yeah, you know, that's what Kalapana did for me, and to this day, you know, I'm still associated with a lot of people with the band, and I
Mm.
have no problem with that at all because,
Mm.
you know, even now when I'm older, I listen as out from the outside. I listen to back the work I did back then, and I was like, wow, did I played that? I don't think I could play it now. Anyway,
Yeah.
so it's funny.
That's
Yeah,
funny.
it's funny. Yeah.
Yeah. But thank you so much for sharing that story. And I think now might be a good time to jump into a saxophone related question. And we have Adrian Chia. He's asking about your Beachler mouthpieces. So he says you play Beachler B-Light alto mouthpieces almost your entire career. What makes you play them so exclusively? And is there something you like so much about the metal Beachlers?
Well, before I would start playing Beachlers, you know, I played hard rubber mouthpieces, right? I had these Meyer mouthpieces, and you know, Meyer made great mouthpieces and stuff. And I played those for years, even with Kalapana. That's what I was playing, hard rubber Myers on all those records, up until like probably the, you know, early '80s. And then when I moved to LA, you know, that's when, you know, I discovered the Beachler mouthpieces. And what I liked about Beachler was it gave a nice brighter sound and more projection than the rubber mouthpieces. And for contemporary music, it was something that was needed. I mean, you know, of course, in pop music, you had to cut more and everything. You know, Myers are great, jazz sound and all that. But so that was one of the big reasons I migrated to a metal mouthpiece. You know, to have more projection and get a little more brightness to my sound. And ever since then, you know, that's all I've been playing. I mean, the Beachlers and of course Duke offs on my tenor. Um, so that's kind of been you know, what I've been playing all these years. And I haven't changed. You know, I'm a creature of habit. So
Nice. So I'm sure you've had the chance to play many mouthpieces over the years. So generally you don't like to try stuff and change stuff. Is that you?
no, I've tried different mouthpieces. I've tried, you know, Yanni Gasawas and Berg Larsens and Otto Links, and you know, for a while I played Otto Link mouthpieces on my tenor. I had a great sound on that. But in essence, for my alto, you know, throughout the years, it's another thing that I don't know if other saxophone players have experienced it, but your embouchure changes. Your jaw, your teeth. I mean, they don't stay the same place as you grow older, right?
Mm,
So that kind of effectively changes your embouchure.
mm,
So throughout the years, I went through a lot of changes. Trying to reface mouthpieces, and I just recently went to another one with a different mouthpiece. I went through, I don't know, 10, 12 beachlers trying to have them reface and everything. And, it's always a constant battle, trying to deal with that. As you get a mouthpiece that you like, it just changes,
yeah.
So, right now I'm in a good place, but, who knows how long it's going to last.
Yeah. And I remember when we first met in person in the US, I remember
Yeah.
you telling me that you actually reface your own beachless as well.
Yeah. Um, Not recommended to players out there. Save yourself your sanity. All right. So, but I used to go to John Yoakum and what's his other name? John, the other guy that,
Riley.
yeah, John Riley and stuff, and they worked on my mouthpiece initially when I was touring with Al and making the recordings in the '80s,
Mm,
and then of course I'm one of those guys like I like to doodle and fix things and that too, right? So
mm.
I thought, well, I watched John Yoakum or John working on mouthpieces and would sit there and watch them go, well, I can probably do that, right? But it's not that simple. It's not that simple. I mean, it's
Mm.
trial and error,
Yeah.
and leave it to the professionals, I would say. You know,
Yeah. Yeah. And of course you've been playing Yanagisawa saxophones for a very, very long time. How do you get started with playing
well,
Yanagisawas?
actually, my good buddy Hisaki Kanzaki, he comes to plays my Temecula festival. One of my best friends in Japan, and I met Kanzaki. I was touring with Al Jarreau, and Ricky Miner introduced me to him in the '80s,
Mm,
and he was pushing the Yanagisawa saxophone. He played them, and he said, "Hey, you should try good saxophone, right?" And so I did, and ever since then, I always played my Selmer Mark sixes and everything, and I started playing the Yanagisawas. They made great altos, and sopranos. Of course, they're world renowned.
mm,
So I played those, and then the tenors had to they caught up, So I have a great tenor now that I play and stuff. So yeah, I play all Yanagisawa horns. I love the company. I know the owner and it's family run, and
mm,
it's all quality. They make it in Japan and just a
mm.
great company. So yeah.
That's awesome. All right. I think that's enough gear talk for for now. But yeah, we have Nicole saying thank you for sharing your experiences, Michael. Wendy, good morning. And we have Russell. Russell, how are you? Good morning. And he says, Aloha, Mike. Where do you get your soul from? How do you develop your sweet melodies when you play?
Well, I think initially I give tribute to my dad. Um, my dad as a musician was always very melodic, and that was part of his style. He had great
Mm,
technique, by the way. He went to Juilliard music school, and he could play
wow.
anything and stuff. But his, he played with such feel and lyricism too. And I think that's kind of my biggest influence with that. But
Mm,
as far as soul and feeling, I don't know. I guess a lot of Filipino musicians. My dad's Filipino, and I guess they call us the black people of Asia, right? As far as soul music and being funky and all that. So I don't know, maybe that's true or not, but I think growing up in Hawaii also attributes to my attitude and the way I feel. I had a
mm,
great life experience growing up in one of the most beautiful places in the world. So when I play, that's kind of what comes out, you know
mm,
through what I play, and
mm.
I'm very fortunate to have that experience.
Yeah, I think Russell said it so correctly. Even in that first video that I showed at the start of the show, I mean, it's just beautiful, and there's nothing more that needs to be said. I think even nowadays I'm coming to a place where I just want to play, the melodies well and make people feel good. I think sometimes I feel, even when people approach like jazz standards, some of them are just so anxious to get done with the melody so that they
Yeah.
can, improvise,
Well,
but yeah.
early on, I mean, I was a big proponent fan of Paul Desmond. I mean,
Mm,
that's one of my earliest influences. And Paul, when he played, I mean, I would listen to, I would he would have like different outtakes and stuff. And every time he played something, I mean, it was like another song. I mean, how he played so
mm,
lyrical.
mm,
He's playing through changes, but it sounded like he created another melody.
yeah,
As opposed to a lot of guys that improvise. I mean, they're just playing the scales and the harmonics and the chords and stuff, and there's
yeah,
there's no melodic feel to it. I mean, they're
yeah,
playing the right notes, right? But
yeah,
it just doesn't whatever. I mean, there's no colors
yeah,
coming out, or they're not
yeah,
painting a picture.
yeah,
And again, that's the most important thing is as musicians we strive to be technical, right? I mean, most of us we want to be proficient, and early on we practice skills. We do all these things. We want to play riffs and we want to be impressive and everything. So we go through a period where that's all we want to do and stuff. But hopefully as you mature, you retain your technique and you can call upon it when you need it. But most importantly, it's when you're expressing music. Again, it's going back to communication, right? And when you're playing a melody, and a person is listening to it, it's easy to respond to something that's slower and broader, than something that's going like this to you all the time, right? And
yeah,
stuff. So there are moments when you need this tension, but for the most part, the average listener, that's what they key in. They want to hear something that is pleasant, right, to their ears. And I try to when I'm improvising, most times when I'm in a chord, I'm trying to think that melodies. I'm trying to play what I'm hearing in my head, you
mm,
know. And then once in a while, we get crazy and we want to play fast licks and we want to do something. But
yeah,
but again, it's cause and effect. When you do that in a solo, when I do that, I'm creating contrast, right? You go from a melody and all of a sudden you play a riff and then you create contrast, but I don't stay there. Then I go back,
mm,
right?
mm,
And it's the ebb and flow of what you do
yeah,
when you improvise that's key on holding your listener, right?
yeah,
And that's what's
yeah.
important.
For sure. Yeah, we definitely can hear that in your music. And oh, we have Judy. Judy Miller says hi. And she says, Michael, you're still my favorite musician. Love your music. So
Thank you, Judy.
thank you. Yeah, thank you for being here with us. And yeah, for those of you who are watching on Facebook, don't forget to join us in the YouTube link above. And if you're new to my YouTube channel, you can subscribe and check out all the other videos and interviews as well. And maybe we'll jump back to a saxophone specific question for a while. We have Rainer here. It says, hi, Michael. How about your soprano? What saxophone model, mouthpiece, and reeds?
Well, my soprano is a Yannick Sour curved soprano. And I mean, it's not a custom horn; it's just a stock curved soprano. And on it, I'm actually playing a metal Beechler. It's about a six tip opening, and on it, I normally play medium hard reeds on it. So I mean, that's pretty much my setup.
And I think you play Lavos reeds on all your horns, right?
Yeah, Lavaz reeds, but recently, uh, Rico, they have Jazz Select, Rico Select
Mm,
reeds,
mm,
and so I started using those on for my alto, and
mm,
I'm impressed with the consistency of it.
mm,
When I was playing Lavaz reeds, maybe in a box I would get two reeds, right, and I would go through a mall get two reeds and stuff, but with select reeds, I mean, there's maybe more than half are playable, and then
mm,
the other ones are closed where I can shave them and work them. So I,
mm,
I, I get out of a box of reeds, I get more use out of the reeds than
mm.
the old Lavazes. Yeah.
Nice, nice. That's awesome. And we have Tadayoshi from Osaka. Nice to see you, Tadayoshi. He's a
Osaka.
amazing, yeah, and he's a great music lover. And nice to see you. Hope we can meet in Japan again. And we have Adil here. Good morning. He says, "Can't believe he missed you playing with David Benoit. Hope it happens again." I think you guys collaborate quite often.
Oh yeah,
Yourself.
in fact, I was talking with David Benoit today, and then he might be performing with me for this benefit virtual concert in October.
Mm,
So he's committed. He wants to do it with me, and David and I go way back. We're great friends. I love his music. He's you know the best compliment I can give him is that I've known him since the '80s, right? He was one of the first musicians I met and played with in maybe '83 or '84, I don't know, back then, and we've always played together, and I tour with him. But he's one guy. He's a friend. I know him and everything, and then every so often I'll sit down and I'll listen to his music, right? And I go, man, this guy's he's great. I take it for granted, in other words, right? And then I go listen to his music. I go, wow. I mean, he's a friend of mine. I know this guy. So I love David, and what a great composer, arranger. I mean, he did all the arrangements on that Heart and Soul, and we
yeah.
still play together. And we will continue to do so. Like I said, we got this thing coming up, and hopefully
Mhm,
we can do more. Coming, in
mhm.
the future. Yeah.
That's awesome. And here we have Mary Merle saying, "Hey Michael, can't wait to see you again. Hopefully in Seattle in January."
The Peter White month. There you go. Yeah.
That's awesome.
If it's
Hopefully
January, it's Peter
January.
White.
Yeah. No. And we have Miguel, I think for Colombia. And
Colombia.
Miguel,
Wow.
yeah, it's amazing. Um, do you think musical interpretation is natural, and or is it, does it? I think he's asking if it comes naturally, or is it built or developed. Did you have to work very hard to bring out the musical side of playing songs?
Okay. It's a correlation between preparation, right? Um, you know, he- Hearing things, natural talent, is given. It's there. If you have a gift, you have natural talent, you can develop it. Okay. But
Mm,
you have to like develop a vocabulary. I
mm,
mean, a great poet is not a great poet until he learns the language, right?
mm,
Once you learn the language, then you can do poetry and you can become great at it. Same with music. I mean, you learn your instrument, you learn the scales, you learn the technique, you learn chords, you learn the
mm,
changes, right? But that only helps you facilitate to what you hear inside here, right? So with repetition, certain melodies that become part of your style that you hear, that only you hear all the time, right? In your head, you learn how to efficiently, translate that, in a split second. So when
mm,
you learn your scales, you learn your riffs and everything, that becomes a part of your vocabulary, right? So
mm,
when you're in the moment of playing a solo, you can draw from that vocabulary. And when you hear a certain melody in your head, you've played it many times, right?
yeah.
So you don't have to think about it. And so you can incorporate it into what you're doing at the moment. So that's the key, is to get it to the point where you can get it seamless, right? So when you think
Mm,
something, you play it. And
mm.
that's what you want to aspire to.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing. And we have Rick with a comment here. He says, "You are the nemesis of David Sanborn. Any thoughts?"
I love David Sanborn. Nemesis? No, I don't think so. There's only one David Sanborn. I know David, and that's another guy. Going back to the
Mm,
melody, right?
mm,
And in essence, maybe I would go as far as to say that he's a modern day Paul Desmond, and what Paul did in his day in creating melodies, over
mm,
improvisation and chord changes.
yeah.
That Sanborn's the same way. He would every time he would play a solo. I mean, he played the melody, and then they would play the solo. It sounds like another melody.
Mm,
And so the lyricism, is key, and reason why he's such a popular player is because he does play with lyricism, and the style that he developed. When I first heard his tone, I mean, I never heard a sax tone like that on the alto, right? I mean, that really
Yeah.
bright,
Yeah.
cutting edge sound. And
Yeah.
like I said, I was playing a minor mouthpiece, mellow. I started to sound like Charlie Parker and Cannonball Adderley and Paul Desmond and stuff. And all of a sudden,
Yeah.
bang! I actually first time I heard Sanborn, I was with the sax player from Seawind, Kim Hutchcroft, and it was actually taking a sax lesson from him in Hawaii, and my sax lesson was listening to David Sanborn. So,
Wow.
and whatever he did, it influenced me going forward. And I tried to emulate his sound for a while, and hopefully throughout the years, I went from trying to emulate him to playing what I hear and stuff. But
Yeah.
again, what he's accomplished in his career and all this legacy and the recorded material that he's left. I mean, it's amazing, and
Yeah.
he it was part of an era, and he influenced many contemporary players. I mean, Eric Marathon, myself, and a whole slew of others. You had Andy Snitzer on, um,
Yeah.
and that one tried to emulate. I think
Yeah.
I think that what most we try to emulate, he had this emotion about his playing, you know, and stuff that I mean, it just grabbed you, when he played.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I
yeah,
always thought he was really the master of like that, 4 bar or 8 bar pop solo.
absolutely.
It's
You
so
know,
difficult. You have such a small, 30-second, segment
well,
to say
again,
something.
that's true. In my days with Kalapana, all those solos that I played, I tried to create a melody. I mean, there's a melody in the song, right? So
Yeah.
when you play the solo, it wasn't about just playing to the changes. It was about,
Mm,
well, what can I create another melody inside the song that would
mm,
become part of the song, right?
yeah.
And in pop music, and
Mm,
when you're recording records, I mean, that's kind of what you aspire to. If you got an 8 bar solo or 16 bar solo, is try to think of a melody or something, a theme that complements the song, right?
mm,
And
mm.
too many guys make the mistake. I got a sax solo, bang, I'm going to play what make me sound good, right? And then all of a sudden the solo comes in, it's like, what has it got to do with the song, you know
Yeah.
but then you hear certain solos, the singer singing, and all of a sudden, bang, the solo comes in, it's like, whoa, it's another song.
Yeah.
And David Sanborn, I mean, yeah, he was one of the masters of doing that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, so amazing. And Tadayushi says he has met you in Hawaii with Bobby Caldwell twice, and that's amazing. And he says, of course, with Kalapana in Japan as well. Yeah, Tadayushi is an amazing guy. I really hope we get to catch up again.
Well,
Great music.
it's so cool. We got all these people from all over the world, and
Yeah, yeah, it's been amazing. And
yeah.
here we have Roxy. Hi, Roxy, and she's
Oh,
from
Roxy in
Manila.
the Philippines. Yeah, I know Roxy.
Yeah, that's
How you
so
doing,
awesome.
Roxy?
Yeah, and Xavier says, cheers from Miami, Michael. Can't wait for things to normalize so that he can catch you at Spaghettini's in LA.
Yeah, well, Xavier, I wish you all the best out there. I know you guys are dealing with the COVID, and just stay safe. Wear a
Yeah.
mask, and and we'll see you at Spaghettini someday again.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And Michael, I think this might be a good time to pivot to you playing with some of the most amazing vocalists. You have a long career and history with El Jarreau, who is so amazing, and I think you've played with Bobby Caldwell before. So how did
yeah.
you start playing with El Jarreau?
Well, I mean, it was again, how things kind of just fate, crosses. I moved to LA. You made the choice to move to LA so I could have those opportunities, for one, right? I didn't see it living in Hawaii, but that was going to happen. So that was my main motivation to move to Los Angeles. So when I did, I had fortunately had a relationship with the members of the band Seawind, Jerry Hay and the Seawind Horns. So they were, of course, recording on all Al's records. And then, of course, their manager, Blue Johnson, became the road manager for Al Jarreau. And, you know, so when Al started checking around LA, we need a sax player, you know, and stuff. And my name kept popping up. And they said, well, this young guy from Hawaii, and he just moved here, and you know, he's great vibe and everything. And unbeknownst to me, Al had been coming to see me play at a club called Josephina's, and he would come in, and we knew he was there and stuff. So he saw me play. He knew I was. So everything led to one thing, and I got hired to tour with him. So it was a great thing, and he put me on the world stage.
Wow, that's really incredible. And how long were you with El Giro for in total?
Well, I started playing with him in 1983, and then I stopped around 94 ish, around there. And then I did a couple things after that, but maybe 11 years. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. And I mean, you have such a amazing career as your own artist. You have many albums out, and I think I want to jump into this, which I saw recently. So you were actually recorded for a Miles Davis album
Yeah.
back in the 80s. Was it 86 or something? And then it did.
1986. Yeah, 1986.
Wow. And then
Yeah.
it didn't get released until recently. Um, so
Yeah.
how? Yeah,
Yeah. So it's funny what the whole story behind that was.
yeah.
I was touring with Al Jarreau, and I was friends with his nephew, Vince Wilburn, the drummer. And Vince is now carrying on Miles's legacy. But we would jam together, in LA at his house. I was living with a bunch of musicians, and so Vince heard me. And he said, "Hey, give me a tape." So I had like a demo tape. I was playing sax on it and stuff. So I gave him his tape, and he took it to Miles, and he said, "Miles, check out this guy." And so Miles listened to the tape, and I came home one day, and I put my answering machine on, and this message came on and said, "Hey, Mike, this is Miles Davis calling, and call me and stuff." And I'm listening. I go, "Man, somebody's playing a joke on me, right?" So I called all my friends. I said, "Hey, did you leave that message, man?" And stuff. So they all said, "No, it wasn't me." So I wrote the number down. I called the number, right? And I said, "Hey, calling from Miles Davis." And this lady answered. She said, "Okay, well, hold on." And then he comes on the phone, and he said, "Hey, Mike, this is Miles Davis. I heard your tape. I like the way you play." He said, "Yeah, I'm getting ready to go on tour soon." And he was just having that health problems. And he said, "Man, I wonder if you would like to come join me, And I was like, "Whoa, Miles Davis." I was like, "What do I say?" Right. And unfortunately, at the time, I said, "Well, Miles, Al was already leaving on tour the following week. We had been
Wow.
rehearsing and everything." I said, "Man, Miles, I'm getting ready to go out with Al, and I mean, we're leaving for tour next week." He goes, "Oh man, you already got a gig and stuff," and so I was like, kind of bummed out. I was like, couldn't play with Miles and stuff.
Yeah.
But then he said, "Man, maybe we do some recording sometime, right?" So I thought, well, yeah, I said, "That'd be great, Miles." But I thought, yeah, right. I'll never hear from him again. So I went on tour with Al for a year. And then, a year later, I get this phone call, and it was, the Miles, and they're doing a record. And at the time, it was Randy Hall, and, involved in the project. And I think Neil Larson was also involved. He was playing with Al at the time. So they were like, "Well, we want you to come in and record." And so I was like, wow. So they sent me like 4 songs to listen to, so I checked them out. And in the meantime, now I'm going to tell you my Miles story. In the meantime, all my friends that knew Miles and played with him, right, they all took me aside and said, "Man, he's going to mess with you, man. Don't let him mess with you, because that's what he does to everybody." And so, "Just be cool, Mike, And it was all my friends giving me advice. I said, okay, man, I'll just be cool. So I went to the recording session, showed up. It was at Ray Parker's studio, right, in North Hollywood. And so Miles walks in, and he tells, I meet him, and he tells the engineer, put up so-and-so track. So they start playing the song, and it's nothing to do with the 4 songs I learned, right? Because I shitted them. Right? I'm going to nail this session.
Yeah.
It's a different song. So I'm like, first thing I'm thinking, oh man, I don't know the song. It's like, and so he stops, and he tells the engineers, stop right there. And it's the middle of, he's just rambling this solo, right? So he stops, the engineer stops, and he looks at me, he goes, man, I want you to double what I just played. And I'm thinking, huh? So yeah, I want you to double what I played. And so it's like 16 bars, right? So he leaves, the engineer goes back, and back then it was 4-inch tape, right? And stuff. So there's no computer you can go back and forth, scroll and everything. So he has to roll the tape back and forth, and I'm listening. I'm trying to learn on the spot, no charts, what he played. So I'm listening. I go, okay, I'm learning. So I said, okay, I got it. So I go in the studio, I record it and nail it and stuff. And I'm feeling good. Okay, I nailed it, right? And so I come back in. He goes, all right, man. Now, I want you to harmonize what you just did, but like this. So we go in the studio. There's a piano in the studio. He starts playing. I want you this kind of vibe. He starts playing these atonal clusters, the Miles shit and stuff. So he's been playing. Goes, yeah, this kind of vibe. I says, okay, So I go back in. I tell the engineer, play it now. Now I have to remember what I just played, right? I doubled this thing, and I got to come up with a harmony to match what I just played. So I'm thinking, okay, well, they roll the tape. I play along. I'm learning. I play along. Then I play it. I get it, and it sounds pretty cool, right? So I'm thinking, okay, I'm in all this time I'm thinking about my friend saying, don't freak out, right? He's going to mess with you, and so I'm just trying to be cool. So I get it. I'm not, I nail it. And I come back in. We listen to it down. He goes, all right, now I want you to double what you just did on the flute.
Oh.
I thought, I'm thinking, okay, all right, now I'm starting to sweat. I have to learn what I did, remember what I just did, transpose it down the step, right? And on the flute, I'm not a flute player. So I go, okay, well, I got to do it. I mean, that's what he wants. So I go in, I get through it, I nail it, right? Okay, I get that. I'm feeling good. I said, okay, he's testing me. I know he's testing me, but I got it, right? then he goes, now play a flute solo. And I'm thinking, I'm going to burn on the saxophone, right? He wants me to play a flute solo. So I'm like, oh my God. So I play a flute solo. It's kind of cool. And then the coolest thing about all this whole experience, I did get to spend some time with him just in the studio, and he's talking to me and he's playing the piano, and we just chatted. It was just me and him, and we talked about stuff. And that was the coolest moment that I'll never forget. But then, they pull up another song, and it's a blues, this funky thing in F. So he goes, all right, I want you to play a solo on this, right? And same thing, he goes to the piano, he starts playing this kind of color thing. I want you to be like this kind of solo, And I said, okay, I think I got it, So they roll tape. I do one take, and then the guys in the control room, the producer, they go, that was it, man, what a take. It's great, sounds great, right? And they're all like, okay, man, this it's done, And then Miles, knowing, see, this is how it was. He's looking at me in the studio. I can see him through the window, right? He presses the talkback button, right? To make sure I can hear him. Because he didn't have to press the talkback button, right?
Yeah.
He pressed the talk button so I can hear him. He goes, make him play it again, right? And he's holding the talkback button. And the guys go, Miles, man, that was a great solo. There's nothing wrong with that solo, man. And they're all saying, no, man, we should just keep it, And he goes, no, make him play it again, right? And they go, okay, Mike, Miles wants another take. So then I play another take. Yeah, nothing wrong. It's just solo in F, right? And then they go, Mike, give us another one. Play another take. And they go, hey, Mike, yeah, can you try one more? And so I'm playing another take. So after about 4 or 5 more takes, and there's nothing wrong with what I'm playing, right? How wrong can it be in the key of F, right? So now I'm thinking, oh man, I'm not I'm not giving him what he wants, and I'm starting to get nervous, like Miles not digging what I'm doing, right? So then after like 5 or 6 takes, everything goes silent, and I'm standing in the studio with my horn, right, headphones on, in front of the microphone, and for about 5 minutes go by, nobody says nothing to me, right? And I'm waiting, and then I look through the control window booth, and I see everybody start leaving, you know, and I'm thinking, what's going on? Yeah. So finally, I said, okay, all right, I got to find out. I took the headphones on, put my horn down. I walk in, I open the door, and I say, hey, anybody tell me what's going on? The engineer looks at me, says, you're done. Pack it up. You can go. And then, so I get my horns. I'm like, Miles left. They're all left. I'm thinking, what just happened? Right? What just happened? And I'm driving home. Thinking, wow, I blew this session with Miles Davis, right? And after all of my friends told me, I freaked out. But then I thought, oh well, I had the experience. I got paid well, and hey, just enjoy that, accept it, right? And that was that. And then of course, it never got released. So I was disappointed, and never got released. It was right before the TUTU record, and then the story I found out later was that the record label didn't like what was the direction the record was going, that these guys were producing, Zane Giles and Randy. So they shelved it, and they called Marcus, and then Marcus did TUTU, right? And the rest is history. So I thought, oh well, it's never going to be heard, but I got to play with Miles. So about 2 years ago, I get a call from the producers, and they go, Mike, remember that recording we did, back in the 80s? We found some people, they want to put it out. I said, cool, right? And so they sent me the tracks, and then they said, well, can you like double some of these parts and beef it up and add some horn things here and there, because they had recorded some newer tracks with some singers, Let Us See, and all those people, and they wanted me to add some, flute and some horn section stuff. So I got Rick Braun to join me, and I did the arrangements. So anyway, so they finished the record, and they put it out, and it was funny because when I was listening to the tracks, it was so long ago. It was like 30 years ago. I was like, I couldn't even recognize if that was me playing, myself, and so it came out, and I mean, I'm just very fortunate that I'm on a record with Miles Davis. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow. That's just an amazing story. I don't think many people would have heard, about your experiences with Miles. I think that, I'm
Oh
probably gonna
wait. There's
yes.
there's a there's an ending to this too. So
Yes.
a year later, okay. So now you know what he did to me on purpose, right? He did it on purpose. I mean, there's no doubt. Miles messed with my head at that session. Okay, so a year later, we're at the Universal Amphitheater, right? I'm playing with Al Jarreau. He's the headliner, and guess who's opening up for Al? Miles Davis. Maybe he wasn't. He was co-bill, whatever. So Miles is opening up, right? And so there's Miles is in downstairs. We're all in the dressing room, and we're getting ready to perform. So I'm on the stairwell with Al's guitar player Charlie Johnson. We're just talking and stuff, and you got to go up the stairs, a couple flights of stairs to get to the stage from the dressing rooms. So I'm on the stairwell, and I'm eating a carrot, from the catering and stuff, and I'm just talking, and so I see Miles on the side of my eye. He's walking with his horn, going up to play, right? So he's passing me by, and he goes, "Hey, Mike, how you doing, man?" And I turn around and I go, "Hey, Miles, what's up?" And I accidentally drop the carrot on the ground, right? So as I bend over to pick up the carrot, he walks by and says, "See what I do to you?" A year later, I was like, really? But that was Miles. That's what he did to people, and it was great anyway. So
That's so amazing.
yeah,
Yeah. In this album, how many tracks were you playing on
I
in
think
this
I
Miles?
ended up on 4 tracks, and the track that I told you about where it was his solo, it's on there. I don't know what it's called,
Wow.
but it's this really kind of uh, yeah, you can hear it. It's Miles playing a solo, and I'm harmonizing with him and playing
Wow,
two
that's
nights.
crazy.
Yeah.
I'm definitely gonna check it out after this for sure. But man, what
Yeah,
a
now you know the story behind it, right?
story.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's so much more
yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
Wow, thank you so much. I didn't expect that we would get to go into that, but man,
Hey, that's
it's
why we do these live interviews, right?
yeah,
You hear stuff
yeah.
that you never heard before. So
It's so amazing. Yeah, we have actually Adil here, and he was saying your collaboration with Melissa Manchester at Java Jazz this year was amazing. And man, I definitely want to talk about Java Jazz. How do you start getting involved with the festival?
well, actually, uh, Jeff Koshua, I don't know if he's still here, but
Mm,
Jeff invited me to play with him the first year. They had Java Jazz,
mm,
and I brought
mm,
I think Brian Simpson. I helped him get the band and the horn section. Ron King was in that group, and so we played together at the festival. And then, you know, since Peter Gonta was the chairman, I had met Peter with Al Jarreau in 1985, 86, around that time, because he had brought Al Jarreau to perform for him in Jakarta. So, Peter, first thing, Peter, again, when he saw me, right, with Al, the first thought was like, what's this little Asian guy playing with Al Jarreau, right? I was a sax player playing with Al. He goes, who's this guy, And it was unusual because how many Asians get to play with people like that back then, right? So
yeah.
then we kind of hit it off, and I went around town with him, and we went jamming around and hanging at the club. So that's when I got to know Peter. So and I ran this a couple of times at the Jack Jazz Festival and a couple of things. After that, I went there with James Ingram and other people. So, but when I went back the first year of Java Jazz, I went with Jeff, and then there was Peter. You know, um, so we hooked up again, and he approached me. He said, "Hey, man, can you help me bring American talent to the festival?" I said, "I'd love to." And from that point on, for years, I brought I don't know 6-7 acts a year to Java Jazz, and I was playing with Indonesian artists. I was doing arrangements. I was doing a lot, and on some of the weekends I did I think 9 shows or something, in the first few years of Java Jazz, and I was a proponent of promoting the event, convincing a lot of American musicians to go there, because unfortunately at the time Indonesia had a stigma about the terrorism and all that not being safe and everything, but I worked hard to
Mm,
convince people that no, it's cool, don't worry
yeah.
about it, right, and stuff.
Yeah.
So that way I kind of helped them build up the event, you know. So after about maybe 6-7 years, I mean, I kind of just did everything, and just kind of stepped back. And a lot of people that I introduced it to the festival, Brian Simpson, kind of became one of those guys bringing a lot of acts and stuff. And then Ron King, became the house big band. So a lot of people that I introduced, started doing a lot of stuff for them.
Yeah, that's so amazing. And I definitely want to ask you about your promoting of festivals, of concerts. Was that something you knew you always wanted to do or happened by chance? How did all that start as well with your own company?
Well, it's kind of happened by chance. I was involved with a festival in Hawaii called Dolphin Days, and I was a musical director, and we'll bring all the talent and put everything together for a lot of years. And so from that experience, I kind of parlayed it when I moved to California, especially when I moved to Temecula. Um, I thought, well, this is nice, wine country, and we should do a festival here, right? So I started the Temecula Wine and Music Festival, and then from then on, just building the event and becoming involved on the business side, you know, then I started getting involved with, jazz concerts, jazz series, and one thing led to another, and people started calling me, can you do this and that? And so, it just happened like that. But organizing things, of course, prior to that, I had my own record label in the 90s, Noteworthy Records. So, I was the owner and manager of the label. So I kind of got to know that business side as far as, distribution and all that kind of stuff, promotion, marketing. So I took that knowledge and then put it into doing concerts. So one thing
Mm.
led to another, and that's what I got into. So
Wow, that's amazing. So, do you feel like now you spend more time on that, or performing?
well, it's kind of a double-edged sword because on one side I promote the shows, but on the other side I also get to play with a lot of the artists that I bring in,
Mm,
right? So I
mm,
enjoy both sides, but I would say that I would the business thing would take up 75% of my career, my time, as opposed to playing, which honestly, as I got older, I want to get back to more playing again, you know, to be and on as far as it's a lot simpler, right? You know, just playing.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. But man, I remember you've organized for quite a few years the Asian Heritage Jazz Festival in
Yes.
the US as well. So that was amazing. You know, usually do you create these festivals yourself, or with different partners, and how do you start off, creating like a festival yearly series?
Well, I just my wife hates it because I sit around and think of ideas, and then I go there and go, honey, maybe we should do an Asian Jazz Festival, and she goes, what? And bless my wife because she's like my partner and all the organizational things and stuff behind the scenes. She takes care of all of that, and I love her to
Mm,
death, and she's good at it, and so I can afford to do these crazy things, right? So because I have a great partner, but yeah, I mean, the Asian Jazz Festival, I thought to myself, being going to Asia and the Java Jazz, there's so much talent. I mean, a lot of, I mean, and in jazz, I mean, because there's a stigma like, you're Asian, you play jazz, especially in America. It's like, wow, that's kind of weird. I mean, in some essence, right? It's not the norm. Okay. So what I was doing with Al was not the norm, of having an Asian saxophonist touring with a major headliner.
yeah.
Back in the 80s, that was not common, you know. And maybe even today, it's not something that you see all the time. But so as a proponent of my culture and where I came from, yeah, I wanted to give exposure, and start an event that highlighted a lot of Asian talent, and we had a
Yeah.
lot of great ones. And I did it for 4 years, and it got great reception. But commercially, it didn't fly. I couldn't continue doing it. Yeah.
Mm, mm. Did you feel when you're starting out in the LA scene, did having the Asian heritage, help, or actually hold back, what you were doing? Did you feel any resistance when you're
Well,
starting out?
now that there's a social, awareness of racial, discrimination in America. I mean, it's here. I got to admit I faced some of that in the '80s when I moved to LA, and just to be candid about it, when I went on auditions, I wasn't white, or I went on auditions, I wasn't black. You know, and so you got to overlook that, and I know certain circumstances, not to use an excuse, but it's the reality of the situation, and fortunately there were people like Al Jarreau that looked past anything and just
Mm,
hired you on the merits of who you were and what you could
yeah.
do. And a lot of people were like that. So I still got the opportunities, but I did encounter, to a lesser degree, those kind of circumstances. And even my mother, my dad, of course, toured the states in the 50s and 60s, and right, and he had his own group, and he traveled around, and so did my mom. Sang with him and stuff. So my mother, surprisingly, before I moved to LA, she gave me some motherly words of wisdom, and she just said, son, being when you go to mainland, I mean, you got to be twice as good as these other guys up there. You know that, right? And so my mother told me that. She said, yeah, so I always had that in the back of my mind. And again, going back to the story of going to the jam sessions and stuff, I realized, hey, I got to get in there and mix it up, or else I'm never going to get hurt, And then on top of that, I mean, just try to excel and be as good or better, And so that's what we dealt with, and I think it's a lot easier these days, because of the nature of the internet now, and how international, the music scene is these days.
Yeah. I was just gonna ask you if you feel it's any better nowadays. I think when I first released my album, recorded with Paul Brown, I
Yeah,
did have these decisions to make, because Paul was like, the name Daniel Chia won't fly on radio. Just
yeah,
why give them a reason to not play your music? Because the music is good. But why didn't you think of a stage name? So we actually toyed around with many, many stage names.
right.
And I think yeah, not sure if any one of you watching, I don't think any one of you know this, but one of the hot contenders was actually the name Kelly Jones.
Uh-huh.
I don't know how he came up with that, but because yeah, Paul's idea was, you send the CD out, you don't even have to show your face, just let them accept your music first, which yeah, it
Well,
sounded good,
it, along those terms, I mean, from my experience, when I got signed with GRP after MCA, right, and so the MCA ended up buying GRP, and I got assimilated at the time
Mm,
with GRP Records. So they looked at me, and my first record, One Passion, did well. I mean, got a lot of airplay and everything, and all that. But then, when I got with GRP, I did my second record, Fusebox, and it was basically an urban jazz record. I had rap on it, I had loops, samples. I mean,
mm,
even before all this other stuff came out, this was 1991, and the producer I had, Robert Kraft, we had this concept of having funky loops and rap and
mm,
everything incorporated with the
mm,
jazz record. So that was
mm,
Fusebox. But when I finished the record, the marketing team in New York, from New York City, they flew me
mm,
out to New York for my photo session and all that.
mm,
And there was one particular song called "The Story of O" as a single. Okay, and and they hired a rapper, right, to do a rap on it, and they were going to try to push me
mm,
urban, right, with this track. But the problem was the same thing. They couldn't tell the programmers that show my face or tell them who I was, that I was Asian, because if you go in urban, you got to be black. So that was the kind of the dilemma that they were wrestling with as far as trying to market me back in the day, right? So it does exist. I mean, and I just it's what it is. You deal with
yeah,
it and stuff, but
yeah,
hey, I mean, it doesn't let you stop what you're trying to do,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, for sure. And I'm glad I didn't go down that route. I just decided, this is me, and I want them to, just enjoy the music and know it's from someone in Singapore, And of course, there were people like
Well,
Sandy Shaw from
and yeah,
Ingram.
commend you for standing up for that, because if they can't accept you for who you are, I mean, then it's their problem, not yours.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. And
Yeah,
even on this, my upcoming second album,
yeah,
I have tunes that currently are named Green Curry, Thai Tea,
uh-huh,
just things I love. Actually, things that I was eating when we were recording it. But,
yeah.
so it's just a working title. But, somehow it's stuck. I shared the song with some people and they're like, hey, I love the tune Green Curry. And I'm like, yeah, why not call my radio single Green Curry, just to, not to prove a point or anything, but, I like it, suits the song. And in this day and age, maybe just bring something
Well,
different. That
I think where you are at and the business is at, like I said, I came from the old school 70s, making records, 80s. '90s having a record label, the whole business is changed. It's not the same anymore, right? So
Yeah.
so everything is all streaming, internet, and international. Like now, you're in Singapore, I'm in California. The internet has opened up, talent from all over the world. As a result, I think people are more receptive, to new artists, and the audience in general. You can Google somebody anytime, and if there's a great young saxophonist, from India, you can see him, right?
Yeah.
And then you can see the YouTube video and you can hear him. So I think in that respect, I think attitudes have changed, and especially in the business nowadays with radio. Paul's suggestion, well, you got to change your name, they want to play it. The radio thing is not as significant as it used to be. Radio back when I was making records, it was important to break you as an artist. I mean, it was important
Mm,
to get you out there because it was the main way
mm,
to market your music, right? That because
mm.
we had thousands of radio stations that you could be heard by, thousands of people, right? At
Yeah.
any given time. But the radio market has shrunk where it's not as important anymore. In fact, it's really almost insignificant to a certain degree. And the only reason why it still has relevance is because there are certain people that still look at the charts and say, well, who's making music? And they base, like promoters, like who's hot now. And then you got a chance of being heard because you're on a certain chart. But in
Yeah.
terms of value and public appeal, I mean,
Yeah.
you're getting 100, 200 spins a week in a country as big as the United States. You're not getting heard. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Back in the day, you get 200 spins a week on one station, in California or something. So,
Yeah.
so you're getting mass coverage, right? As far as market, people hearing you. That's why there's a popular correlating the success of a new artist on radio these days. I, you know, well, he has a number one record, but you know what? Nobody knows who he is. And if you ask somebody, name the song that associate with him, they can't because
Yeah.
it's not familiar enough. That's the
Yeah.
problem, and that's why I have empathy for younger artists because they got to deal with that, and it's harder to break through, because you don't get the exposure that we used to have, you know. So, with that said, I mean, there's other angles, YouTube, viral videos, and stuff where you can establish yourself and get heard, and get known, and you don't need all that radio stuff anymore. So,
Yeah, but yeah, I guess that's really assuring also to hear from you, as someone who has gone through all that, the whole part of the business from the playing to the promoting and still being you, you definitely don't shy away from that. And yeah, I think it's inspiring for a lot of the viewers who are here in Asia as well. And you're right, now the world is a lot smaller, with the internet and social media, and we get a much easier route to share our music worldwide, and no matter which part of the world you're from. And of course there'll always be insecurities, I feel, for myself, like, is my music good enough? Are they gonna accept, do they even know where Singapore is? So I always have those thoughts, but I think it's also reassuring that we can only do what we do, and there'll be people who don't like it for whatever reason. And we just have to keep just
yeah,
sharing our
I mean,
music.
that's all you just make the music, and in fact, in some ways, you're luckier. You're luckier. The new artists are luckier because you have a platform through the internet to be heard, right?
Yeah.
And you have access to people, an audience. Okay.
Yeah.
In the old days, if they didn't play you on the radio, you're done.
Yeah.
If mainstream record labels and radio didn't want to play your record, you would never get heard because the internet wasn't there,
Yeah.
and nobody would hear you. That's it.
Yeah.
You could have made the best record in the world, but some guy at the label decides, well, no, we're not going to back him up, or we don't want to
Yeah.
play it. You're
Yeah.
you're done. I mean, in those days, that was it. Kiss of death, right? And that's the influence radio had. But these days, they don't have that control over us anymore, right?
Yeah.
Because now people can just, press a link and there's Daniel Chia and his new record. And you can hear all the songs right there, right?
Yeah, for
Easy
sure.
access.
And no, I guess yeah, just no excuse for us anymore to not get what we want to say or share out, so yeah,
Mhm.
I guess everyone will have to just keep pressing on in this, unusual times, and I'm sure everyone is finding their way as well, I'm sure there are a lot of artists who haven't maybe used the online medium in a while, just mainly, touring and playing shows live. But now, when that's gone, everyone, it's almost like back
Well,
on the same playing
I,
field.
I'm, I'm
Yeah.
looking at a question from Rod Esteban, my drummer in Hawaii, and he says,
Ah.
what are your thoughts on the future of live music in the new normal?
Yeah.
Right? So we can get
Yeah.
into that. And, and,
Yeah.
it's streaming, online streaming. I mean, we have access to the internet, and that's what people have been doing, and because the physical limitations of going out and performing now together,
Yeah.
it's dead. It'll come back. I mean, don't get me wrong, it'll be probably, I'm predicting, maybe next spring, summer, we'll get back to kind of a sense of normalcy. People will feel safer to go out again,
Yeah.
because I think by then we'll have mitigating treatments, to lower the risk of dying, and getting
Mm.
real sick from the virus. And I think if you get it to that point, then people won't be afraid as much anymore. Because
Yeah.
what's prohibiting people right now is there's so many unknowns with the pandemic, and it keeps changing, that the risk is you could die from it and get really
Yeah.
ill. So people don't want to go out. It's not safe. But as they get therapies that will treat that, and hopefully a vaccine, and then it'll be behind us again, and we can hopefully get back to the live concerts. But for now, the new normal is what we're doing. I mean, I'm already planning, some online streaming concerts. I've invested in some video gear and streaming
Mm.
gear, and shortly I'm can make an announcement that I'm going to be hosting some online concerts.
Mm.
With all of my
That'd be
friends,
great.
to kind of fill in the gaps, right? And
Yeah.
that's where we got to go, these days. Yeah.
Yeah. And, no one knows what's coming ahead, but, yeah, I guess we can all just adapt. And, even for the viewers, I think it's also the sooner they realize that, they'll probably not get to catch, live music in a while, so for them to also embrace, this online medium. Of course, there's just something about the live performance experience. But in the meantime, this is probably the best that's going to happen. And even being able to do a show like this, I think, for Michael, I maybe not many of your fans might have even heard a lot of these stories, so we just
Well,
change the angle.
absolutely. I mean, it's not like I sit down with them and can have time to chat
Yeah.
with them after a
Yeah.
concert or
Yeah.
festival, and I can tell these stories now. I mean, so
Yeah.
so it's nice
Yeah.
that you provide a forum. Like I said, um, it should be all about that. I mean, talking and sharing life
Yeah.
experiences, and getting deeper, because it's true. When I'm out performing a concert after the show, I'm busy signing autographs, or if I'm
Yeah.
producing a show, I'm taking care of
Yeah.
business. Or before, I'm
Yeah.
always running around. So
Yeah.
people can't ask these questions, and I can't tell these stories, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And the amazing thing is, just now when I was searching for your YouTube videos, like when I search in Michael Paulo, like this video is the third search result on YouTube, which is
Uh-huh.
pretty amazing, and it will live on YouTube, and people can, down the road as well, find this video and listen to all your nuggets of sharing. And I think that's the amazing thing. And that's why I always wanted to do it on a live stream platform, but also, it'll be saved and recorded. And that's the joy. And I'm definitely going to cut out the parts of your Miles Davis story. I think that, and put it as a separate video. I think these are just things that, yeah, it's just amazing to hear. And yeah, hopefully, inspire more people to and see what torture you went through in the studio that day. But No, it's definitely a good learning experience for everyone. And yeah, I think we're coming to the towards the end of the show. It's been 90 minutes,
Oh,
and
really?
time
See?
yeah, yeah, time
Really not
really,
forever.
really flies. And thank you for those of you who have stayed with us right from the start. If some of you came in late, and you missed any parts, you can always rewatch it on YouTube. And yeah, and next Saturday, or Friday for those of you in the US, next week at the same time slot, I'll have the amazing Jeff Kashiwa. Actually, I'm having 3 live streams next week, which is gonna be incredible. But yeah, it'll be interesting. So I have Greg Fishman, amazing jazz musician and educator. And then I'll have Better Sax, Jay Metcalf on one episode as well, and then Jeff Kashiwa. So I'll be definitely be sharing that all 3 shows, the links to you guys. And yeah, thank you so much, Michael. I really, really appreciate your time and your sharing. And man, I think we could go on for another 5 6 hours worth of stories. But
Hey,
you know,
Daniel, you are the new generation, man. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep
thank
playing,
you.
making music. And yeah, someday
Yeah.
somebody will be interviewing you and be a man like me.
Thank you so much. It's really been a pleasure. And, let's make sure we do a part 2 soon. And yeah, at the meantime, we'll definitely keep in touch. And for those of you who enjoy Michael's music, please go and check it out. And I'm gonna check out that Miles album. I'm gonna find it. And yeah, I think you guys should do the same. And yeah, follow Michael on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and that's the best way to keep in touch of his upcoming live shows. I'm sure you'll blast it out on social media. So once again, Michael, thank you so much. Hope you have a good evening, and yeah, we'll see you guys at next week's shows.
Well, to all of you out there, stay safe, keep your head up. This won't last forever, okay? And
Yeah,
we'll get through this together, and we'll see
yeah,
you at a nice concert in the future. And all my fans out there all over the world, thanks for tuning in. And again, mahalo, Daniel, for hosting us.
thank you so much, Michael. Okay, see you guys. Have a good day.
Aloha.
Bye.